Usually don't pay attention to things like that.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to the Mayor's Hotline. Once again, we're here with our Mayor, Adrian DeGroot. I'm your host, Don Walmsley, and we're looking forward to sort of a very insightful, action-packed time with our Mayor today. As you see, I've got a list of questions pulled out of recent sort of things that have been going on lately and are happening, and maybe a revisit to some of the other things. So welcome again.
Thank you, Don.
I'm going to start right away and ask for sort of an update. I noticed that in your mayor's report you were talking about looking at housing development. Mm-hmm. And if you'd like to just sort of recap where we are with that, what you're looking at.
Well, there was a number of studies that were done in not too far past, looking at needs, looking at types of accommodations. As a consequence, there was some construction, but not a whole lot. And so the Kinsmen, they had an initiative to try to put a seniors complex together. Then that reverted to duplexes or standalone units, and that didn't really materialize. So with the the validation that our population has increased by 27% from 2011 to 2016, and also looking at our new housing starts that they're at a low, so that doesn't add up. So we take a look at, say, well, why doesn't that add up? And one of the things that we've been working on, and this is some of the frustration with the plan of subdivision that we were doing in the old CN property, where we have some single-family residential, multiple family residential, that is just about ready to go. So we finally got it going. So as well as what's happening with the old Eastview Lodge site, is that we're filing a plan of subdivision for that as well. So things are starting to come together. We've met with some interested people within the community, yourself, with your role full-time, as well as our economic development officer, and saying, okay, so what are some of the options? What are some of the opportunities? Have we explored, everything? So we're, in fact, tomorrow morning, we've got a conference call with Manitoba Housing and Renewal. Okay. Which is really good. We wanted to have that in last week. So there's trying to do a bit more emphasis on trying to, at least from a town's point of view, have lots available, for development, as well as getting that interest and stimulating that part of our growth pattern as well.
Now, do you have any sense of what housing is available here in Neepawa?
Well, what I understand is that for the size of our community, and I don't know if there's a rule of thumb, or usually quite often what you do is you take a look at how many houses are on the market. Houses on the market are turnover and and things like that. So I would say for the size of our community, and this is not scientific, that the size of our community, we should have at least 100 units on the market. Mm-hmm. Like that are constantly
in turnover. Okay.
For sale. They might be on the market, off the market. And as reported last week, and we want to get a better handle on those statistics. Last week, I think there was around 17.
Wow.
On the market. So, taking a look at that, and that's what I want to get a handle on with our EDO, with whether we start another housing committee or a land availability committee, or maybe just an ad hoc group that would come together and brainstorm and bring ideas and say, okay, are we positioned to be able to attract developers? Are we positioned to be able to attract other type of business development? And really looking at that and making sure that we have those opportunities ready and available. Because if you don't have serviceable land within an immediate area, people tend to shy away from that, because they say, well, by the time you put your water and sewer out there, we're looking at 2 or 3 years away. Well, you can't have that kind of a situation, and so we're focusing and starting to address those things.
Just back to something you said a little bit earlier. You said we are shortly ready, and you were talking about things around the CN property, and you were talking about the old Eastview Lodge property. By shortly, what kind of time frame are you talking about?
So immediately, we've put together a request for proposals for the former CN property. This was done some time ago, and the feeling was that we were a bit mature as far as putting those feelers out into the development world. A couple of things. The plan of subdivision wasn't in place, and any developer, any builder, home builders know that unless you've got, that you can get title within 6 months or a year or, a very short period of time, you're not going to sit there and wait.
Yes.
You're ready to go, you're ready to go. The other thing is the accessibility for water and sewer. So now with the main trunk sewer, we were able to push that well into the CN property. So it's within a very manageable time period in order to attach to that network. So that's shortly. And that RFP should be going out as we speak. We approved that, the draft was ready last week. And so it should be going out into the major news.
Okay, so shortly is shortly then.
Yeah, shortly is shortly. So as we speak, the CN property is going out. The Eastview Lodge former site is another process. A plan of subdivision application has to go through. So that application, the drawings were done. We did some in-house work looking at the existing infrastructure that is there. So that's within a very manageable time frame. That's what shortly means.
Okay, good, thank you.
And I think I mentioned that to some people, is that hopefully by the end of the month, we'll be able to have some good news as to what we're going to do.
That means March, right?
No, the end of February. So now
Today?
Well, that's what we're doing. We're
okay.
We're taking giant steps forward.
Well, then, all right. Well, okay. As my old granny used to say, the proof of the pudding's in the tasting.
Hey, always,
we'll see.
Always, but I feel optimistic.
Good. Well, it's good that you feel optimistic. I'm going to switch gears a little, but still sort of in keeping with some of the things you said. I noticed that there's some question about infrastructure responsibility. Is that clearly defined here in Neepawa? Because I get the impression that different communities take slightly different approaches.
Yeah.
What is our stand currently, and is that going to change, or is that going to remain the same?
I would have to safely say that there's no collective decision as to what that looks like. Because, and the reason I say that, and I qualify that collectiveness, is that the conversation that we've been having in council within the community over the last couple of years is starting to lean towards perhaps we need to take a more active role. The community,
as a community?
As a community itself.
Okay.
So the results of this request for proposals on the CN property, or the former CN property, will, answer some of those questions.
Okay.
Depending on the interest and depending on the level of interest that you get there. So, yeah, and what we're also looking at, we've developed a template development plan. It isn't hit the table yet, but we've been working on it for quite a while. We're also looking at a land sales policy. So a lot of these things are starting to kind of come together. So the role of the community, it's my belief, if nothing happens, if you don't get private enterprise or private development coming in, and the need is there to start developing, then I think a community has to take on that role. And many communities do that. We took a look around the countryside, and especially when we were developing our template development plan as well as our land sales policy, we found that many communities do the infrastructure work, right to the roads, to the curb, and then basically say, here's a lot, or a number of lots, they're up for sale.
Okay. Is that sort of the thinking you think in this community at this point?
I don't, as I said, I don't think it's general. There's some people that have gone through myself, I've promoted that conversation, that we should do that, because I think we're each year or each month that we delay a housing start. We delay the opportunity for people to move in. And the other thing is through the budgeting or the pre-budget consultations, some people in the community have suggested that we get on with that development, get on with stretching our infrastructure, to those areas. And certainly I think we're doing that, like with Force Main. That was a big decision. It was a previous council, but certainly this council kept it going. Just had a conversation this morning, and we're getting the results that were engineered, the anticipation, which is excellent news. So about 20% less stress on our existing our existing infrastructure, and so that is good. So a conversation like that takes time. You have to be able to see it, but we'll get there. We'll, taking care of those other things need to happen too.
All right, tying in with this, you're developing an interactive calculator, right?
Yeah.
Sort of give a sense so people can take a look at how their taxes are broken down and what they're used for. How far along are you in that?
Well, really pretty good. We've got one for tax calculations, so that as soon as we roll out the 2017 mill rate, and people will be able to go on the website and calculate what their, before they even get their bill. They'll be able to calculate what my next year's or this year's tax bill will be. What we're also doing is we're developing a calculator for the new water rates.
And that was one of my other questions.
Yeah, so
we need simplification. I don't have a physics degree.
Exactly.
Nor a pre-cal degree. When I'm looking at our sewer and water rates, what's the bottom line?
Okay,
and I think most of us are looking at that.
Exactly, especially if you're budgeting. So you can say, okay, well, you're going to get hit, with the September budget or the September bill, and it's going to be effect July the 1st. So that's when people want to know that. I would like to know that what's going to change. So what we're doing now, and we're perfecting it. I'm not sure whether it's online yet. I'll check with our administration, but I had a preview of it just last week. And basically, it'll be very simple. You take your old water bill, and you look at your consumption. Yeah. How many cubic meters I think it is of consumption. You put that into the field, and then it'll calculate what your bill is. It'll show you what your bill is now, and your average bill, and then you'll be able to see based on what that bill is. So if you take the last bill and you had an X amount of consumption, you just put that into that thing, hit enter, and it'll calculate what the new on the same consumption. Yeah. What it would be July the 1st. Okay. Or
And you know what? That would be helpful. And again, a very simple sort of process to use, because, of course, any of us, when our taxes go up, we want to know how much. And then I think the corollary is, if you're looking at what the tax breakdown is, we need a refresher regularly. What are we paying? What are our taxes going to?
Well, yeah, that is very directly related to a thing that we're moving towards, and people have heard me mention this term. It's called asset management. So part of asset management is not only looking after your assets, but it is also about reporting how well you're doing.
Yes.
So it's not only about how well the equipment is working or how well you are applying the right fix to the roads or things like that, but it's also be able to say, Don, what am I getting? What value am I getting for the dollars that I spend?
And we often hear that question asked in the coffee shop. I'm paying all these blasted taxes. What am I getting for it?
Where does it go? Well, 10% here, 4% there, 15% there. Well, am I getting the service that I would expect as a consumer, as a customer? And these calculators will be able to dissect our budget into areas. So now we got a calculator for our total tax. We'll have a calculator for our water and sewer by consumption. And then we're also looking at a calculator for one of the areas that we want is the Riverside Cemetery. I know it's a sensitive subject to people, but people need to know, because it's a fairly large portion of our budget. What does it cost for that service?
And we need to take a look at that.
Maybe it's a cemetery, fire and emergency services, policing. recreation. So we'll be able to build on that, and people will say, well, here's my total tax bill, because that's what the pre-budget survey was about, is saying generally people were fairly satisfied,
Okay.
about, but sometimes there might be certain pockets that they not quite, maybe we should spend more, and say, okay, having that kind of a calculator tells us of my assessment, this is how much is going to that particular service.
And I think that's very valuable because all of us have particular issues. For example, and I'm going to jump to another topic, we had there was a letter that came about speed limits and enforceability, and interesting because I think the person, when you take a look at the letter, we're talking about a stretch of highway that's a well-traveled highway, straight through a corridor through town, and speed can be an issue.
Yeah.
What's going to be the response of council with regards to that?
Well, the last response was to make an application to the Highway Traffic Board to reduce the speed from the east coming into town.
Yes.
Extending that 80 kilometer zone as well as the 50 kilometer zone. One of the things that I've asked the citizens on patrol to do is, and I haven't seen any reports lately, and we've got to maybe reinvigorate that reporting, because they quite often put up a speed gun and record.
Yes, they do.
Record speeds and things like that. So that's information. That is important information that we can use, not only letting people know that they are speeding, but also because it's my intent that we reapply to the Highway Traffic Board again. And, for that reduction in
What was the
speed.
reason before?
They said that the traffic studies, it did not warrant the reduction of speed. That's basically, they take a look at. So they did some traffic counts. They did some observations. They took a look at the amount of egresses onto Highway 5, and also some of the improvements that they made at the High Life exit.
Yes.
They made it wider so that traffic would not be slowed down. So that was kind of the argument that they used, that it just didn't warrant, according to their standards, it didn't warrant the re-signage. One of the other things that I've asked our operations people to take a look at, the day that we start looking more seriously at the design of Main Street, as far as what was known as the functional design a number of years ago. What can we do? So can we alter?
So for Main Street, you're talking about the 16, right?
Yeah, Highway 16 from east to west. So taking a look at that area, that particular area, which seems to be of concern, and which is that knoll on where Brown is. So one of the questions I've asked is, can we lower that knoll, so that the line of sight, and that that you don't have to have that run up onto that hill. Can we lower that knoll? And if we take a look at that, and I've got a fairly good eye of height and things like that. It'd have to come down about 3 or 4 feet. And I said, what does that do? One of the concerns is the water and sewer under the so as soon as you take 4 feet of cover off, you're closer to the you're closer to the existing infrastructure. So there is some issues there. Do we close Brown off? Well, if we close Brown off, that's a major. That's a major.
It feeds all that complex to the south.
Right.
A number of roads come off there.
Yeah. So all of these things are being considered on, and so we're taking a look at those things, but definitely, the speed limit. We've asked the RCMP to be put up extra control. They have done that periodically from time to time, which is good. But also looking at the data And then, do we have a new case that we can bring to the Highway Traffic Board and say, like at least slow the traffic down a little bit more. But one of the biggest things is with the trucks and things like that, is that
it is a fairly steep incline, and they need to keep momentum going, because the last thing you want is trucks to slide back either.
Exactly, and we've had that on that knoll before.
Okay, moving on. Waste and garbage disposal. I know we've had the discussion here the last time, I think, and there was some consideration about looking at going to the bin.
Yeah, carts.
The cart, sorry, the cart approach. Are we any further along in that discussion?
We talked about it through our budgeting, as far as, are we ready for it? And one of the conclusion was that we're not ready for it.
Okay.
It is very appealing. However, the impact, also the change again in our service that we are providing, it not only affects the physical aspect of garbage pickup, and also what comes with that, because one of the things is that right now some of it is backyard pickup, and like if we go to carts, we can't do that. It'll all be front yard.
Yes.
So as a consequence, because we have the lanes, there's a lot of streets, the access to the property is from the lane rather than from the street, so you don't have driveways. So driveways is a natural place to put your carts. So now, so you're looking at the logistics that are involved with it as well. And so, you got to think that through.
What about the machinery?
Well, the machinery that's the easiest part.
Oh, is that right? Oh, okay.
And that's one of the reasons we went to we went to the RFP in order to be able to have that flexibility when we're ready to do the carts. And so the service provider that we have now has that ability to switch over.
Oh, okay.
To switch over. The other aspect is looking at our bylaws. So right now we have as a special service, it's added onto our tax bill. And the other thing too is bag limits. So there's legislation, I guess, within the town that needs to be looked at, and we need to, so that now it's starting to be a handful, literally, as to what we need to do and how we're going to handle it. And we need to do it. We need to do a better job of transitioning than we did in January.
Okay. So, is it coming along, do you think?
Oh yeah, no. That conversation by itself identified all of the areas that need to be addressed when we go.
It's still new. These are new providers since January. I mean, everybody's
that seems to be working out. As I said last time, Evergreen are getting a better product for a better recycled product.
That's good.
Which is really good. Yeah.
Okay. There's always got to be some little area of contention in any kind of community. Let's talk about the resource center. Let's talk about where it's at, because I hear all sorts of things. I hear it's going to be demolished. I hear there are tenders out. So you know what? You're here to give us a skinny. What's going on with that?
Okay, so the tenders went out. So that was the whole process was kind of held up again through municipal planning and things like that.
Yeah.
So we finally got clear title, because the title was really messy of these properties along Davidson. And so that's all cleared up. Once we got clear title, we tendered it.
Yes.
There was three very qualified bids on the resource center. All of them would fit the downtown location. So that was very, very rewarding. Some of them were as is.
Yes.
And then they would undertake the renovations. Yeah. So going through that process of evaluating the bids, taking a look at like our strategic plan, taking a look at some of the community needs, it was identified that the successful bidder was the daycare.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So so the sale was contingent on that the building would be demolished and rebuilt according to their specifications, as well as they didn't need the size of that building. So what that happens is that an area will be opened up for green space that goes along. Nice. That'll go along with that building.
There's no question we certainly need daycare space. It's really and that's becoming fairly common wherever you're getting a large source of newcomers coming into a community, because a lot of children, but certainly here we've been being challenged with that. So that's good news.
Yeah, so it really worked out well for the successful bidder, because it's a central location for them. It's accessible to both the high school and the elementary school. Yeah. And so it's that's exactly where it's at. So we're in the process of the sale, and then it'll be demolished. And so what's happening now is that we're looking at any fixtures that might be salvageable within the building.
What are you going to do with salvageable fixtures?
Well, if you need a chair or something like that.
Okay, so you got
everybody needs a table.
Have you seen what's in the basement? Have
you
seen what's in the basement?
No,
I think there's a lot of people that have been storing stuff in that basement. So.
You think?
Oh yeah.
It might be archivable.
Yeah, well, some of it may well be. I'm not kidding you.
I don't want to go there.
Okay, well, you know what? That's really good to hear. I'm pleased that we've got a successful tender. I think that makes good sense. You talked about what fits with the community and what the needs are in the community, and that's very much an identifiable need with needing more daycare spots. So, well, good, and it's nice to see something done with that building.
Oh yeah,
and certainly the lot's a fairly prime location. So, all right. Oh, that's good. So, soybean processing plant. There was a presentation made by Weldon Newton, I think, right?
Weldon and Mr. Redfern.
Mr. Redfern. Okay, so talk to me about that. What are the implications? What are the ramifications with our community, for example?
At this point, it's very premature.
Okay.
In a sense, not premature as far as we're outside of it. We're starting to engage in that conversation. Some of the local interest groups are putting some thought to it.
So are we talking
those
about
connections.
A plant close to here? Or
we're a long ways from that. So.
No, but is that sort of what they're...
What the push is they would like the in western Manitoba.
Yeah.
Okay, so where in western Manitoba, and there might be some spin-off industries with this, what I understand from the presentation. So location is, certainly our economic development officer is very closely linked to that conversation, to meetings, making sure that we're doing our homework as this proceeds, and also working with the with different aspects of the initiative. So not only on the political side, as well as the industry side, as well as looking at some of the other proponents for future investment. So, so it's an exciting endeavor. It's it's taken on a very public profile, because a lot of times these things are not done in a public profile. But certainly we will put our best foot forward as the process unfolds.
Well, I notice it, and it's becoming, I think, more of a trend. We're seeing the age of the pulses coming in. We're looking at that situation in Portage, for example. They've announced the state-of-the-art largest pea processing plant coming within the next couple of years, which is exciting. It makes sense for soybean. I mean, that's a very large commodity, a very large market. So that's kind of an exciting thing. We've just got a few minutes left. Now, okay, I'm going to turn it over to you. What have you got else out there in the mix that you want to throw out?
Well, I really want to encourage, and you stayed away from potholes.
I didn't. I knew that was going to be a big subject.
Well, I was at the pancake lunch at the Anglican Church, and I was directed to go down the back lane behind the Anglican Church because there was something there that I had to witness myself. But anyways, I don't want to be light about this because it is not a light subject. But what I want to do is make sure that people, when they notice a pothole, especially if there's something that is big and it can damage, make sure respectfully, I ask that, let our administration know at Town Hall.
Do we have a pothole hotline?
We have, it's I think it's 76006. That's mine. Oh, shoot, forget that one. But no, no. But I say that seriously because sometimes, like our crews go around town. They'll be doing their regular maintenance, their regular rounds, but they might miss one.
Yes.
Or something might show up overnight, and so make sure that phone the town office. Let them know the location so that our people can go down, assess it. If it needs a barricade, if it needs a marker, we don't have the material quite often on hand to do the fix right away, but at least so we can make sure that the traveling public is alerted to that issue. So be patient, because I know it was one showed up on the end of Dominion Road. Yeah. Not that I know anybody that lives there, but it was fixed within a couple of days. So.
Well, and that's does that mean you have pull?
No, it doesn't mean to have pull, but it was a bad hole.
Anyway, anything else you can think of? The pothole subject was there, but I thought we covered a fair amount, and we're.
No, I think we're as I said, we're well into our budget process. Look forward to our next public meeting that we'll be able to let people know what the 2017 budget looks like.
Good.
So looking forward to some
more
some
money
good
because
things.
of the census. I think we're going to be eligible for some additional funding.
A lot of those things don't kick in until next year.
Okay.
And you can't, you can't count your chickens until they're hatched.
No, that's fair
kind
enough.
of thing, eh? So we build in the water and sewer rates, but only starting from July. We don't build them in. Eh?
Well, we look forward to that calculator, that interactive calculator. Give us a sense more about what our taxes go towards and what we can expect in terms of increases when that occurs. Once again. Any people out there who have any kinds of things they'd like me to ask the mayor, please don't hesitate to just drop it off in a little note to Nikki at the front desk saying, can you ask the mayor about this? And we'll go from there. Otherwise, you all have heard there, if you notice serious potholes, please call respectfully, the administration, let them know so that they've got it on their list and we'll address it accordingly. Otherwise, I think we're coming to the end of our day today. It was a shortened day, but packed full of really good stuff. It was really nice. I'm pleased to hear about the resource center and things finally are coming to some kind of resolution around that. You've been listening, or watching rather, the Mayor's Hotline with our Mayor, Adrian DeGroot, and myself, your host, Don Walmsley. And we appreciate you tuning in and look forward to having you watch us next time. Have a pleasant day.